In a series of lectures relating to termination of permanent employees services. In the last one that we would like to discuss, Delhi Transport Corporation versus DTC Mazdoor Congress and others, where the very question was raised regarding termination of permanent employees and the constitutional validity of that regulation, Regulation 9, Clause B of the Delhi Transport Corporation Authority, conditions of appointment of services regulation, which was issued in 1952. So, in this regard, we would like to discuss first what exactly as it was decided in the year 1990. So, in this landmark judgment, as it was delivered in the year 1990 on the month of September, the case was centered around the constitutional validity of Regulation 9 Clause B of the Delhi Road Transport Authority, conditions of appointment and service Regulation 1952, which empowered employers to terminate the services of permanent employees without holding an inquiry, as provided they give reasonable notice or pay in lieu thereof. So here the appellants, the Delhi Transport Corporation, a statutory body established under the Delhi Road Transport Act 1950, terminated the services of three permanent employees, citing inefficiency and inciting other staff members not to perform duties. In response, the terminated employees represented by the Delhi Transport Corporation Mazdoor Congress filed a writ petition challenging the unconstitutional validity of the Regulation 9 Clause B, arguing it violated the provisions of Article 14 right to equality and Article 16 Clause 1 relating to non-discrimination in regards to employment and Article 19 Clause 1 Subclause G regarding right to carry out any kind of profession, occupation, and Article 21 of the Constitution of India relating to right to life and personal liberty. So the very judgment that was delivered by the apex court. So hearing the appeal, the Supreme Court of India upheld the High Court of Delhi's decision, declaring Regulation 9 Clause B as unconstitutional. Further, the Apex Court held that Regulation 9 Clause B conferred arbitrary and unbridled power to the management, allowing them to terminate employment without following the principle of natural justice, specifically the principle of ode alteram partem, which provides that one must hear before making pronouncement of any judgment. So the court emphasized that while efficiency and discipline within public institutions are paramount. They must not come at the expense of fundamental constitutional rights as provided under Part 3 of the Constitution of India. The lack of guidelines and procedural fairness in Regulation 9B of the Delhi Transport Corporation Authority Conditions of Appointment and Service Regulation of 1952 inherently discriminatory and violative of equality before law as provided under Article 14 of the Constitution. So, in this particular judgment, the Appeals Court or the Supreme Court extensively made reference to several key decisions. Those decisions and judgments that already we have discussed in this very series are Workman vs. Hindustan Steel Limited 1984, which made established that arbitrary termination without due process violates the very principles laid down under Article 14 and Article 21 of the Constitution. Further, the President referred in this important landmark judgment by the Apex Court was relating it to West Bengal State Electricity Board versus Deshband Ghosh in the year 1985, where it was held that termination clauses without procedural safeguards were struck down as unconstitutional and violative of the provisions of Article 14 of the Constitution of India. Further, the Apex Court made reference to Central Inland Water Transport Corporation Limited versus Brojnath Ganguly, and it was decided in 1986 by the Apex Court, where it was declared that termination powers as unconstitutional under the guise of public interest as it was expressed by the authorities. So, these cases that were made reference by the Apex Court further the legal reasoning as it was given by the Apex Court was grounded in the constitutional mandates of Article 14, equality before law and equal protection of law, and Article 16, Clause 1 relating to right to employment without any discrimination, and Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G, right to practice profession, trade, occupation, etc., and Article 21, right to life and personal liberty. So, the Apex Court held that Regulation 9 Clause B violated these articles by allowing termination without adhering to the principles of natural justice. So, in this landmark judgment, certain important constitutional aspects were discussed by the Apex Court in relating to arbitrariness and discrimination. So, Regulation 9B, that is the regulation of Delhi Transport Corporation Authority, Conditions of Appointment and Service Regulation 1952 provided unchecked discretionary power to management, leading to potential misuse and arbitrary decision. So it violates the constitutional provision of Article 14 of the Constitution of India. Further, the apex court expressed that regarding principle of natural justice, they found the absence of a required inquiry or opportunity to be had, as it is underlined under the very principle ad alteram partem, negated the fairness essential in employment termination. And in this particular landmark judgment, a very doctrine that was referred by the apex court, that was the doctrine of reading down. So, in regards to that, the apex court expressed that attempts to interpret Regulation 9 Clause B in a manner that would align it with constitutional requirements were deemed inadequate, as the regulation's language was clear and unambiguous in confirming unrestricted termination power. So, finally, the apex court emphasized that while public institutions must maintain discipline and efficiency, these objectives cannot override fundamental constitutional protections as afforded to every individual, including those employees as provided under Article 14, Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G, and Article 21 of the Constitution of India. So, let us discuss about the impact left by this very judgment, and that is regarding the judgment has profound implications for public sector employment in India. It reinforces the necessity for statutory bodies and employers to adhere strictly to constitutional safeguards as provided under Article 14, Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G, and Article 21 of the Constitution when terminating any permanent or temporary employee. So the very impact that was left in the 1990 judgment delivered by the apex court in this landmark judgment, Delhi Transport Corporation vs. Delhi Transport Corporation, Mazdoor Congress and others in the year 1992. 90. And the very impact led strengthening labor rights. Employees in public sectors gain enhanced protection against arbitrary dismissal. Further, the impact left regarding compliance requirements, statutory bodies must ensure that employment termination procedures are fair, just, and reasonable, adhering to the very principle of natural justice, in particularly the principle ad alteram partem. Further, the impact left on guidance for future legislation. So the legislators are guided to craft employment related regulations that incorporate procedural fairness to comply with constitutional mandates. Finally, the impact of this judgment laid on judicial oversight, increased judicial scrutiny on employment termination practices, either of permanent employees or temporary employees, to prevent misuse of the discretionary powers. So, moreover, the judgment in this important landmark judgment, Delhi Transport Corporation versus Delhi Transport Corporation, Mazdoor Congress, and others in the year 1990 sets a precedent for evaluating similar termination clauses in other statutory regulations, ensuring that they meet constitutional standards of fairness and equality. And in this important landmark judgment, the apex court, the Supreme Court of India, also made attempt to classify some complex concept relating to doctrine of reading down, a judicial technique where if a statute is found to be partly unconstitutional, the courts interpret the statute in a way that conforms with the Constitution without striking down the entire law. However, this can only be applied when the statute is ambiguous or has multiple interpretations. Further, the apex court simplified the very part of principle of natural justice in the sense ad alteram partem, a fundamental principle of natural justice, meaning here the other side. It ensures that a person has the opportunity to present their case before any adverse action is taken against him. Further, the apex court simplified the very provisions of the Constitution of India in relation to Article 14, which ensures equality before the law and equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. It also further simplified the very meaning and definition and the provisions as provided under Article 16, Clause 1, which guarantees the right to equality of opportunity in matters of public employment, and further, the apex court made classification and simplification of the provisions of Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G, which guarantees the right to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade, or business. Finally, the apex court made simplification and clarification regarding Article 21 of the Constitution of India, which protects life and personal liberty, encompasses the livelihood as part of the right to life and personal liberty. So, now we would like to conclude the very judgment regarding Delhi Transport Corporation versus Delhi Transport Corporation, Mazdoor Congress, and others, which was decided in the year 1990 by the apex court, where the Supreme Court judgment served as a crucial affirmation of constitutional protection against arbitrary employment termination, either of a permanent employee or a temporary employee, by invalidating Regulation 9, Clause B of the Delhi Transport Corporation Authority Conditions of Appointment and Service Regulations of 1952. In regarding emphasize that the needs for efficiency and discipline with public institutions must be balanced with the fundamental rights of the employees as provided under the Constitution of India, as under Article 14, Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G, and Article 21 of the Constitution. So, the very decision underscored the judiciary's role in upholding constitutional values and ensuring that legislative and executive actions conform to the very principle of fairness, equality, and justice. So the decision set a clear precedent that employment termination powers must be exercised within a framework that respects and protects individuals' fundamental rights as provided under the Constitution of India, thereby fostering a fair and just work environment in public sector undertakings. So finally, the apex court laid down that the sanctity of constitutional rights or the fundamental rights as laid down under Part 3 of the Constitution of India, ensuring that public authorities operate within the bounds of law and equity, thereby safeguarding the dignity and livelihood of their employees as provided under Article 21 of the Constitution of India, which provides right to life and personal liberty. So hereby we conclude our valuable discussion and the lecture on this important landmark judgment, and that is Delhi Transport Corporation versus Delhi Transport Corporation, Mazdoor Congress and others, which was decided in the year 1990.